Hey, good morning, afternoon, evening. Hope you're doing good. Today we're going to be talking about Indo-European contact. Let us start off with some impeccable logic. Cats eat fat rats. Rats sleep on mats. Mats are used for hats. Cats can wear hats. Therefore, the rat spat on the cat. So now for some more logic. India was in contact with Europe for more than 2 millennia. Ancient Indian scriptures have used the term Yavana for Greeks deriving from Ionia, which is in Turkey, which borders Greece. Later, it was used to describe everybody in the West, including Romans and Arabs and Moors. Moors are basically Arabs in general. So, Muziris was an ancient city in India where Romans used to trade from the Red Sea. Oh, not this one. Yep, this one. So, now we are going to talk about Europeans in more recent history from the medieval period and later. Here are three European countries in India. To all the Dutch people out there, I'm sorry. The first hero to India by Europeans was discovered by Vasco da Gama. He was born in the year 1460 in Sines, Portugal. In 1497, the Prince of Portugal placed Vasco da Gama to head four ships around Africa to India. They left port on July 8th, 1497. About 4 months later, they rounded Cape of Good Hope and reached Calicut on May 20th, 1498. He sent crewmen who took with him two Moors from Tunis who could speak Castilian and Genoese. So they asked him what brought you here, to which he replied that he came in search of Christians and spices. So Vasco da Gama was deeply astonished to hear the men speak his language so far from his home in Portugal. So when he first saw the citizens, he believed that he had found Christians, as he mistook the Hindus there for Christians. Later, the Moors of Calicut soon instigated the Zamorin of Calicut against him, and he had to return with a few spices that he had bought there. But he still made a 3000% profit. A second expedition to India left a factory of men there, but they were killed by the Moors because the Europeans were attacking Arab shipping in the Indian Ocean. So, to take revenge, Vasco da Gama was sent to Calicut, where he leveled the whole city in 1502 and returned home with great spoils. Now about the French. The French voyaged to India in 1603 by Binopole Mir de Gonville of Honfleur. 1604, King Henry IV authorized the first Compagnie des Indes Orientales, or the East India Company, who had a monopoly on trade to India for 15 years. It was formed by Jean Angot. In 1610, a small fleet of ships had been bought and were preparing to sail from Saint Malo. Most of the investment and the crew was from Holland and Flanders, and this was very annoying to the Netherlands or the Dutch East India Company, which threatened to capture French vessels and hang any Flemings they found on board. Two further attempts were made to establish the company in 1615 and in 1635, but although a few vessels were dispatched in the 1640s, they amounted to very little. Jean-Baptiste Colbert started the Compagnie des Indes Orientales again in 1664. The capital was 15 million livres, which would be more than $500 million in today's money. They had estimated a net worth of more than $1 billion in today's money. So the first Britisher to come to India in the 17th century was a London merchant by the name John Mildenhall. He had a passport from Queen Elizabeth and he traveled overland. He spent 7 years in East from 1599 to 1606 in Emperor Akbar's court. So by the time he returned home, the East India Company was already in existence. On September 24th, 1599, some London merchants held a meeting and raised £30,133, and they were wanted incorporation from the crown. Some major help from the Levant Company and Thomas Skythe, who went on to become the first governor of the company. Their original purpose was not to go to the Privy Council, but they reassembled in the Founders Hall exactly a year later and raised 68,373 more pounds. The last day of the year 1600, Queen Elizabeth incorporated the 217 subscribers by the Royal Charter titled the Governor and Company of Merchants of London Trading into the East Indies.